What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Ad Podcast. Happy Halloween. Appreciate you guys tuning in with us on a Friday. And before we bring up today's guest, I want to quickly give a shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Go High Level, the all-in-one CRM and marketing automation platform. Help to build agencies, consultants, and creators scale without duct taping software together. If you're tired of juggling landing pages, email tools, SMS platforms, pipelines, calendars, High Level brings it all into one place. Think funnels, automation, pipelines, AA chat, scheduling, reviewing, and reporting all under one roof. It's powerful, it's customizable, and it is designed to help you close more deals and deliver a seamless client experience. You can start your free trial at gohighlevel.com and build your business on one platform. Use the affiliate link in the show notes to get a 30-day free trial. And now I am excited to bring up our guest, Kevin Hein. Kevin, what's going on, man?
Hey, Dylan. I am. Thank you for that. The trailer, your sponsor sounds really interesting. So, what
Awesome, man. Well, we talk to a lot of agency leaders and Go High Level. They're great at helping out agencies kind of manage their business processes in one place. But we are not here to talk about them in this interview. We are here to talk about GIPHY. So, quick introduction on Kevin. He is the Chief Growth Officer at GIPHY, but he spent over a decade in leadership roles in Meta and began his career at Ziff Davis. Kevin, I know we tried to connect at Cannes, but here we are.
Yeah, it's so nice to finally meet you. And I got to tell you, Dylan, I'm impressed with the multiple vertical industries and the people that you've interviewed hundreds of times. Really gives some context and texture to the entire landscape that we all work in. So really appreciate what you're doing to get just all these different perspectives from across the media landscape. It's really impressive. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, really appreciate it. You are episode 204. So we just celebrated our 200th episode anniversary recently. So, it's been a labor of love. It's been something that has made me smarter. And I get to point it in the direction of whatever I happen to be interested in or whatever my clients happen to be interested in. So it's been a great tool. But let's get into it. So what would you say to people who think of GIPHY as just a place for GIFs and memes? How would you describe the real power of GIPHY? And then we'll get into your background and bio.
So one of the beautiful parts of representing GIPHY and talking about it is whenever it's brought up and people recognize it, which is the majority of people, their first reaction is a smile, because they're usually looking back of like, what is that meme that I just used? What's that GIF? What's that reaction? And it really is synonymous with joy. And just representing a brand that can offer that in these times where it's within communication, it sure could be challenging and not always optimistic. It's such a wonderful place to represent how people communicate. And one of the areas that we're seeing a large explosion is around group messaging. And within those environments, people are sharing a variety of different images, GIFs, memes, stickers, reactions, go down the line. But all in all, it is a place where people are expressing themselves. It's a place of which feed-based environments don't offer the same type of intimacy in the conversations.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think when that first started happening at scale, guys hanging out in WhatsApp groups talking about their favorite fantasy football league or people on text chains. And that's the cool thing is like these private chats exist like within all these different types of mediums and like channels. And I think it was coined dark social at the beginning. Now it's kind of just like a normal thing. Like most people are in multiple professional and personal private threads with sometimes a handful of people in Slack or on a text chain or WhatsApp, or hundreds of, if not thousands of people inside of Telegram groups or Discord servers or places like that. So I want to get into your bio before we go too deep down the rabbit hole, but I feel like we're on an interesting thread right now. Anything interesting that you guys have seen from the research around, what's the level of engagement or the value of impressions that happen within these quote unquote dark social ecosystems versus public social media?
Yeah, so one of the areas that we're spending a lot of time in is really doing the trend analysis. So if you've been to GIPHY or have used it across many of the platforms across the internet, you could see a trending feed or the capability to just search by your own. And what's interesting is we do a deep dive into what's trending. It's not always what you could predict. And by having like a really strong thumb on the pulse of what actually is happening, you could really see the trends that start to happen. So the main takeaway is it's a little unpredictable. It's not always the hottest TV show or what happened last night, global politically, whatever it might be. And when we stop making assumptions of what we think people are searching for, there's always the happy birthdays, happy Mondays, Friday. All of these still get hundreds of millions of impressions, but we just let the trending feed do what it's going to do. And the topics could vary in ways that you couldn't imagine. Of just think about even the trends that happened on TikTok of Jet2 holiday. Like, I don't think anyone could have predicted, or a algorithm would have proactively created something like that. So in one important place is that we're using the trending feed data to really understand what culture is talking about. And then with that insight, with that data, we're able to search out content, create content, work with partners to create content around those areas to create an engaging environment. And we've been really successful in doing that. We've seen engagement up, we've seen usage up, and honestly, the texture of how the trending page has evolved over the last couple of months in particular is really fascinating. And we think it's resonating with people who are using the product across all surfaces.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, I want to get in how brands are able to capitalize on cultural moments. And I love your insight that, these cultural trending moments inside of GIPHY are not algorithm driven. They're driven by people going to your platform and searching for memes or GIFs to basically go and post. So it's kind of like it's different than Google search. It's different than what's trending in algorithms because of, what people are engaging or commenting on or what the bots are doing. So I love that insight, and I can't wait to dive into that. But let's start a little bit with your origin story as well, because I love giving people the opportunity to learn how folks got into the industry. We get a lot of comments and outreach from young people, especially in the current environment, who want to get into our industry and different components of it. So I always like to give those folks a little bit of digital breadcrumbs into following the footsteps of some of our, colleagues and guests. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? Where'd you go to school, and what did you study? And how did you land originally at Ziff Davis in the print side of the industry?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I grew up in Long Island, New York. And one of the prerequisites of me being fortunate enough to go to college was it can't be here. So my parents really wanted me to get out of the area, get exposed. And I ended up in Madison, Wisconsin. I was supposed to visit Bloomington, Indiana, but Madison was so much fun that I never made it there. I enjoyed 4 years in Madison and was pulled back to living in New York City. Upon that, I really didn't know what I wanted to do specifically, but I know I wanted to be around smart people, and I know I wanted to maximize my income so I could potentially live in New York City. It was a lot more economical then. And working through family connections, was able to land at a company called Ziff Davis, which is still around now, I believe, as an investment arm only. But it started in the world of print publishing. In particular, I do like tech. It was PC component, electronics focused magazines. And PC Magazine at the time was the pinnacle of magazines in this area. So I joined Ziff Davis, who obviously owns PC Magazine, and I started on a magazine called Windows Sources, going way back, which is about the Windows operating system. I don't know what that is, but I learned the basics. And as I learned the basics, I moved around to other magazines, and I ended up on the crown jewel, PC Magazine. And from there, learned so much about the foundations of selling, being client focused, the beginnings of being strategic. And yeah, it was print sales, but at the same time, the people I was around at the time wound up being leaders that are still leading major companies today. So that was like my foundation of learning the business, and I did like it. I then went on to more of a B2B IT tech sale at a company at the time called CMP Media. Circulations were more centralized. It wasn't go buy it at the newsstand. It was sent to the CIOs. And so I learned more of that B2B slant on the business, controlled circulations. I mean, all of this is pretty old at this point. But now I had the broad subscription, million-person audience and reach game. And then I had this B2B, more CIO, tech, business lens. And I did that for about 6 years. And then I started the itch for digital. I went to a company called CNET, and CNET is still around. And as a tech head, I was able to get close to the consumer electronics, and then started getting into what was the beginning of our digital economy and digital ads. And I had a 2-year run there, wanted to expand further into search. And this is 2007 or so. And I earned the right to join Yahoo and learn display, search, like large reach. And obviously Yahoo is still around and getting rebuilt, which I think will be a continued success for them. And then all of a sudden, around 2009, I had my territory, and we talk about budgets. And this is just on the sales side. And 9 out of 10 clients, when we talk about how they're planning to invest, 9 out of 10 would say, but I'm experimenting with Facebook and that can't be touched. So that was not the core budget, but it was this 10% experimentation. And I kept hearing it. And I'm like, I wasn't much of a fortune teller. Facebook had a strong foundation at the time. But by 2010, I had earned a spot at Facebook. And this was 2 years pre-IPO. It's about a little under 1,500 employees, very small office. And that was just a rocket ship until my departure, where there was 80,000 employees in 2023. And it was just one of the most amazing, dynamic, ever-evolving, pressure-filled, explosive environments.
Now, for Facebook, were you brought on to kind of lead the charge around consumer electronics? Like, was that your vertical or your category based on all that expertise that you had in tech and gaming and stuff like that?
So at the time, if you could even believe this, there was no verticalization. So I had to look at business across every single vertical, and the majority of brands, it was pretty much the first time we were talking to them. I remember two in particular, IBM and Comcast, were new conversations to us, and I approached them one of the first couple of weeks that I started, and we were in social jail. So anybody out there that feels like they're either pigeonholed into a market or it's too small, there was a time, and it lasted for a long time, that Facebook was in just social budgets, and having a conversation in broader digital or even talking about TV could be an insult. And that was probably until 2015 that Facebook started to earn the right to have conversations outside of a social budget. So things might appear like they happen quickly and they're hyper accelerated. They're not. The same pain points that exist in the majority of digital platforms today, actually anybody who's going after an ad dollar, retail media networks, commerce, whatever it might be, there's a growing pain, especially when you're creating a new market. But what a wonderful experience. And then That led me to a year in consulting, which was a tremendous amount of learning, working with CIOs, working with CEOs across the board, fractional. And then I got a call and a whisper of this wonderful opportunity at GIPHY. And I'm looking forward to talking to you about this as we go through our time together.
Yeah, I love it. So how long have you been in the role now?
About a year and a half.
And what was it that kind of took you out of quasi-retirement? I imagine after a 10-year run pre-IPO, I've got some friends that were in that position and they don't have to work. They work because they like it. What did you, what kind of, and a lot of them do exactly what you did. They do consulting, they kind of stay in and around the industry, but they don't go back to like a hardcore full on, CRO, CGO role. What was it about GIPHY that got you excited about going back into a full-time growth role?
So it actually stems from a little website that I created many back. It was called electronicsexchange.com. This was late 90s. I wanted to sell electronics online, but the infrastructure wasn't there. And through this exploration and growing up within digital media, I realized that if you have an audience, and if that audience is growing, it's monetizable. And I know that sounds like so obvious, but what's the so what? If you have reach and it's growing, you can do a lot with that, as opposed to like a small niche destination that might not have a large audience, but they're curated. That's powerful too. But if you have major reach, you can do something with it. And as I explored around as far as what are the untapped reach vehicles that exist in any form of media, and the fact that GIPHY has reached over 1 billion people for some time yet, and is across the majority of messaging platforms across the world, from a Meta to a TikTok to a Slack, across the board, that to me sounds like the ultimate opportunity for someone to lead and to monetize in different ways. The other part, which was so attractive, was GIPHY as a brand represents joy and happiness. It's very rare that you mention the brand to somebody and they're like, oh, that's so divisive. Oh, I don't need trying to wean myself off it because I'm spending 5 hours on it and it's really not good for me. It's not that. It's the opposite. It is a brand of joy. And how that complemented my years at Meta, the majority of them were really, really, really good, positive, optimistic. You could probably recall we went through some hard times there with the world.
Yep.
And representing a brand like that gave me a tremendous amount of resilience. And I appreciate that. But at the same time, it could be quite taxing to then go to a brand like GIPHY that represents so much happiness, quirkiness, joy in the tone of culture. What could be more attractive than over 1 billion people, untapped revenue across all the surfaces that people use every day for work and for business? I literally think it's one, if the best opportunity, if not one of the best within this space, period. And it's proven out over a year and a half.
That's amazing. I love that. So let's talk about how GIPHY monetizes. So you talked about some pretty exciting trends, already over 1 billion in reach and scale, being leveraged and shared across the majority of messaging and social media apps daily. I think that's a really interesting component too, right? So it's like you're not buying in a channel, you're buying in like all the channels, but in this like, some are posted publicly, but like you said, many posted privately amongst peers where they're more engaged and they're paying a lot more attention because they're amongst smaller shared groups of relationships or inside of communities that represent highly passion points. But how does a brand take advantage of becoming part of a GIPHY moment? Like, walk me through an ideal client engagement, or maybe a case study that you're recently launched that you're really proud of. I think would maybe give some of the listeners who haven't thought of GIPHY as a place for them to advertise, maybe start to put them in the mind of the customer?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of different entryways. We get a healthy amount of incoming from what we find out are brand leaders, agency leaders, a CMO taps somebody on the shoulder of just like, wow, this is different. Like, I'm going to equate us to a brand. It might be a little unfair, but it's almost like the Liquid Death approach. Like, Liquid Death, I think, has done a great job of being cool without trying to be cool, without oversaturating, but at the same time finding that balance of being undersaturated, but also with enough reach. Like, wow, what a tightrope to walk. And I think they're hitting an inflection point where they're going to have to make a decision of what type of brand they want to be, their product SKUs, et cetera. So the reason why I mention that is because we're one of the few brands, when you look at it, it's like, okay, we've got the feed-based environments. We know where messaging and group conversations happen is like the real deal. And nobody could enter that space except GIPHY. Which is talk about organic. We don't even have to go into paid, but just think about it. The only place of which you could insert a branded message is within our distribution, period. So when that light bulb goes off, then it's the how. And when the how starts, that can come in multiple forms. You could upload organic to expose your brand to people that are actively searching for it. You could enhance that with paid and amplify the algorithm to expose your brand in places that you want to be aligned to. There are options around IRL, which we have a healthy GIPHY studio business where it is the opposite of something like a wedding or one of the Instagram kind of photo things coming. This is like a full-blown studio that we can take on the road or host, and brands that have multiple locations of events that they want to do, they map incredibly well there. So as far as where you can get brand exposure but a little more intimate, we can scale that way. So that's the one way of like curiosity. The other way is my point of view as far as how media dollars are being allocated. I'm going to stay mostly digital. You have SEM, but obviously that's morphing with AI. You have Facebook representing the place that a CMO will never get fired because that's where they hit their core metrics. That's where it's defined. That's where they can get reach. You have programmatic to cover everything else on the open web. If you're a retailer, you're partnering with a retail media network. And then kind of, I know I left out Reddit and LinkedIn and large platforms, but then there's kind of everything else. So if you want to do a version of everything else, your paid media and organic media is going to look the same basically in a feed environment. But the one place that it won't look the same is within GIPHY. And that is a place for experimentation.
Would you say that GIPHY is a branding play, an engagement play? Have you seen it drive lower funnel resorts? Where does it sit within the brand versus performance media mix?
So it does start at the top of the funnel. And as much as I want to deeply, passionately believe we're a very powerful full funnel solution, it doesn't play to all of GIPHY's strengths. And here's why. And remember, I'm coming from all the years of Meta, which is close to the perfect formula of being able to do that. What we've seen work really well across the funnel is first the approach of brands coming in being true to who they are. Okay, so remember, you're joining the conversation. And in doing that, I like to say if you're going to a wedding or an event and you might be with one other person or maybe you're solo and you want to go up to a group, you're never going to enter that group with what's on your mind and just inject. You're going to go to the circle, you're going to listen for a second, and then you're going to get into the flow of what they're talking about. It's non-interruptive. And when you understand how to bring your brand essence and then join an environment like GIPHY, understanding where the conversation happens using the right keywords, understanding the environment, understanding how to use the call outs visually. Those are the brands that really harness the power of it. So more specifically, I want to focus on a brand called Mug Root Beer.
Yep. I have some in the fridge right now.
Okay. So not a paid placement there, everybody. So Mug Root Beer, which is owned by Pepsi, it's been around for a while. They actually do very well on the East Coast. And they came to us with a creative idea. So for those that don't know about Mug, and you might, they're a really quirky, interesting brand. Their mascot is a bulldog face, and that's represented in many forms. And they don't want to be the A&W root beer of the competitive world. And what they came to us with, they said, we have an idea and we want to harness your insights and expertise. They said, we want to use our character, who happens to be a person who's 6'5", puts on the dog mask, and wants to do everything with Mug possible through gifts. We set up a studio in New York in partnership with Vayner, who is a great advocate of this initiative.
Oh,
yeah. And we went to a studio in New York and we produced 60 pieces of creative with this person, again, this enormous individual, with this mask on, with Mug Root Beer, doing things like pouring Mug on a skillet of bacon, or riding a virtual turkey leg and saying Happy Thanksgiving. Like 60 pieces of creative that had no call to action, that had no discount code, that had no pricing. And what we found after that campaign was not only a brand lift, but we drove sales. And the reason we drove sales is because Pepsi had given us anonymized sales data through their feed. We did synthetic holdouts through our marketing research, and we came back to them with a specific amount of sales that these 60 pieces of creative drove. So while it started as this full funnel branding, if you look at the creative and if you get the moment to do it, they are hysterical. If you look at the creative, you would never think this would convert into sales at all, and it did.
Well, I think you are hitting on something that I think is very important, right? Which is, how do people feel about the brand? And if I have Mug Root Beer in the refrigerator right now. I don't know why I have it. My wife bought it. I don't know why she bought that over A&W, or why she even bought root beer. We normally don't even have sugary drinks in the house, but we have it in the house right now. I think we have some Coca-Cola in the house too, left over from a party. But I was at a screening for a new film that's coming out that is about the moment that IBM Watson beat the Jeopardy hosts in 2011. And the old chief brand officer was featured in the film and spoke last night. And one of the things that he talked about is, this idea that brands, you have to make people care about you or feel joy towards you or feel good. They need an association that is positive, other than awareness. Awareness doesn't necessarily always drive results. It's feeling. And especially in something that would be maybe considered a commodity like root beer, if I go to the shelf and if I've encountered one of these 60 pieces of hilarious content in my social feed, and then I go to the shelf, my lizard brain creates a warm, pleasant, funny, associated feeling with that brand, and I buy it. A lot of times I don't even know why I buy it, right? So I think you are tapping into like how real marketing works, is it makes you feel something about brands. And then when you go to the shelf, you actually don't even know why you make the decision sometimes.
Yeah, that was so perfectly explained. Like, thinking about that journey and that little smile on your face as you're going through the aisle and trying to grab whatever that is. the brand essence does play a role there, and especially in a commoditized beverage market where it's not price point. And I will tell you honestly, when the campaign started and they talked about their objectives of selling soda, I said to my team, I said, let's white glove service them because this might be the last campaign we're going to see. Once I saw that it was not clicking to a discount code, that it wasn't a special offer, that there was no pricing, I still have confidence in the platform to deliver, don't get me wrong, but we're not naturally a bottom funnel, clickable, 0.01 cent CPM, 300 million impressions a day, drive to a landing page that has one click to confirm your discounted buy. We're not that. And to see this confirms to me that if you are pure to your brand essence, and if you join the conversation, and if you don't force it, and if you give enough creative iterations, and if you set up a good campaign just based on keywords, you are likely going to see success because there isn't a lot of crowd in these group messaging environments, and there's no other way to get in. There's massive reach, there's massive volume, but there's a lot of opportunity no matter how big or small your brand is.
Yeah, no, I can, my wheels are already spinning. So talk about how, and I'm such a fan of Vayner as well, and Gary, and I could see why they would design a campaign to do something like this that did not almost militantly stayed away from call to actions because they understand the power of the channel and what you guys bring to the table and what you're doing. And having call to actions would probably defeat the purpose and, create less shareability versus more. Now talk about the 60 pieces of creative. Were those, just ideas that Vayner creative directors slapped on the wall with Post-it notes, or were they based on trends? Like, did you see somebody else post a meme of pouring soda on bacon? So then that became one of the ideas. And did you use the kind of the trends mapping in order to decide, like, what were these 60 different videos? What were these 60 different, motion graphic, meme, whatever you want to call it, GIFs? What were they? Where was the creative inspiration for each of these versions?
Yeah, you mentioned most of the inputs, and I imagine you've been on a studio shoot of some type or a photo shoot where the energy in the room also fuels the creative ideas, right? And
Yep.
my studios team has to feel out the client as far as like, do we have a regimented direction of the outputs that we need, and that's what we're going to adhere to, and we're not there to really comment and guide? Or do we have an open, fluid, dynamic relationship where we say, hey, we've done this in the past, it didn't work, why don't we try you holding the can this way or you smashing it with your foot, and then we could write this caption, because that goes along with it, that one word. And obviously, in this case, it was a dynamic shoot of creativity and laughter and joy and focused on the business output. So seasonality played here because it was around Thanksgiving, and that was part of the design. So we stuck to that. But because Mug was so acutely aware of who they are and what their brand voice is, and that they're not going to sway away from it, because they are a significant brand. I believe they're $1 billion brand.
Wow.
Maybe they're a little south of that. Don't quote me on that, but Pepsi has like $9 or $10 billion brands just on the beverage side.
Yep.
They knew exactly what they were, and that Pepsi Blue Can's awesome, but they're not trying to be Pepsi Blue Can. You're not going to see a Mug Super Bowl, even if they had the money, because they kind of want to be that low key cool. Like early Red Bull, again, Liquid Death, not a poppy, nothing wrong with that, but they knew who they were. And I think any brand who understands their brand voice and objectives and stays within those lanes is incredibly successful. It's just hard when you try to scale, or it's hard when you want more volume. But the sugar root beer market I wouldn't say is a water market, right? It's a little
Yeah.
different.
It's
The
root
point,
beer, sadly, you have to first you have to get past, and for me it's a treat, it's like I love root beer with like barbecue, but I also like it. I like any sugary drink with barbecue or kind of comfort food. So you have to get past the health components and you have to get past the taste components. But yeah, it's still a massively popular drink. And it's also, the staple of a very popular dessert, right? The root beer float.
oh yeah, that's right. And I think you're honing in on exactly like your association with barbecue and a sugary drink is what our insights are driven by. So we know those
Mm,
connections on a keyword basis or time of day basis or the text overlay that works well with this. Like what we optimize on doesn't come down to the programmatic algorithmic, let's try 430 different background shades of color on this same ad. That's very powerful. We don't do that. We know categorically what's going to work and we know it really well. And the brands that listen to us and work collaboratively with us is a better way of saying it. They're the ones that hit home runs.
mm.
It's the ones that are rigid, just don't do as well. Concept from a feed-based environment usually or a TV spot. And it just doesn't translate the same way. It's to change an environment
Yeah.
and you have to do these small modifications. And when you do, the payoff's huge.
Yeah. Memes are not, sharing a video, and nobody shares a commercial unless you're like working on it. It's like, you have to translate your brand to the medium that will, facilitate shareability in these ecosystems. So I wanted to add, it seems to me like memes are so trend heavy, and they're like these moments in time. Oftentimes working in the creator marketing world for the last 9 years, the biggest challenge that brands were facing was, I know I need an army of creators that can create content that's trend jacking or can take advantage of moments in the social glyph, but it's hard to get approvals. It's hard to move at the speed of culture. What are some of the challenges in kind of getting brands to step into cultural moments when they move so fast? And if you don't hit it on the upswing, well, then you look like a poser because you're like trying to take advantage of it when it's already played out and it's on the downswing. So how do brands play in this world of social trends when they're generally set up with approvals and legal teams and things that inherently slow them down?
Yeah, there's two things on that I think collide. Well, first of which is I sympathize for today's CMO.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we could say that for the last couple of years because while it is a influential, important, high visibility position for individuals that build their career to get there, and the majority, if not all of them, really deserve it. At the same time, you have a ticking clock against you the day that you get there. So not only are you drafting off of your legacy CMO and the positives and maybe not so positive actions they've taken that still exist for the brand, whether it be a brand that's suffering or sales that are suffering. So you inherit that, and then you have a short time window. So what I think is fascinating is the CMO title might actually go away. I think it's shifting more towards like a COO title because they are so accountable to the results. Where a Super Bowl commercial a couple of years ago would be about reach and buzz. I bet you Super Bowl commercials today have the reach and buzz element and the bear hug when you're all watching it together wherever you are. But I do think they are also looking at real-time results of what it did to the bottom line. Not like a week
Mm-hmm.
later on the wrap-up report. I actually think it is in the moment. How is this performing?
Wow.
Not just X feeds that are automatic or what people are talking about. I'm talking about sales, orders, volume. And the reason why I bring that up is because if you want to create an annuity for your job and you look at the performance report of your past campaigns, your predecessor, and you see, I'm making this mix up, it's 60% Meta on automatic, barely even put any creative in, and it just churns out. And it's 20% Google SEM, and then we could put a little bit in programmatic. And because we mentioned beverages here, let's do some retail media network with Walmart Connect. And that spit out a particular result. I don't see many CMOs coming in right now saying, what is the exact opposite I can do from this to accelerate me getting fired? It's like, how do I use this as the core? And then what's my experimentation? What we're seeing a lot less of, unfortunately, is that experimentation. It's still being done, still earn dollars there. There are times when we are the core buy of an experimentation, and there's time we are an ancillary buy to accelerate something else in the experimental budget. But what I difference is that the tone mental isn't the same as it used to be. And that's okay because things change and evolve. But there isn't
it used
that
to be like
excitement.
mandatory 10%, right?
Right. That's exactly it. And if we dissected the 10% today as 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I bet you that 10% was some very cool creative stuff that was very different. Even if we fit in the 10%, we're not that experimental. Like, think about the pressures that exist. So you take that, whether you believe in that philosophy or approach or not, and then you look at another side of it. Sydney Sweeney, American Eagle jeans could be seen as experimental and bold. And parts of it definitely are, but there's a couple of things with that. One, American Eagle was on their heels. I think that they may have been even teetering with bankruptcy.
Wow.
But they were really under some real financial pressure. And to them, let's take a swing. We've got nothing to lose. So now they launched this campaign. And after the buzz wears off, and I think it was effective based on if that was their real goals, how many jeans did they sell? I don't want to know about brand lift. How much denim did they move? And how much are they moving right now? Right? So it's like the life of a CMO right now, or any brand leader, it's always been finite, but now it's scrutinized. So then how do you move into experimentation? This is outside of GIPHY. It's just a different way of thinking that I think is paralyzing the industry a bit. And it's unfortunate because that creativity is what creates the next platform, the next form function. Like when the phone goes away and there's a form function, then what? So I think it stalls creativity. It stalls boredom. Boredom is very powerful. You get bored, you do some thinking. So I believe that that's what's going on now. It's the energy that we're seeing. We're still growing. We still win a lot. There's a lot of creativity. But at the same time, it's still a bit regimented to a KPI. And that's okay because we're in accountable time. But at the same time, it's a different tone and texture, especially when you're entering such a robust group messaging environment with so much fun activity at the speed of culture. When you need to be like that, we just have some work to do as an industry, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good broad picture strokes commentary on, when I got into digital, everything was experimental. I was kind of around that same, like Facebook was just popping off. So, I was on the YouTube side of things. And, a lot of people were like, YouTube, like, isn't that dog on a skateboard? Guys getting kicked in the nuts. So, yeah, but things change quickly. But important question. When you are doing, you've got this great studio team who can bang out 60 pieces of creative, but if you think about the production value generally of GIFs and the kind of real estate space they occupy on the screen can sometimes be small.
Sure.
You probably don't need super high production to create effective creative that works. Can AI meme yet?
Yeah. So, and I'm going to expand on that a little bit more. AI is the buzzword of the day and will be probably for the next couple of years. It reminds me of like e-commerce when that term came out, and then all of a sudden it just became commerce, right? I think the AI functions that are used are eventually just going to become part of standard business, and we have a way to go. So we're using it in a bunch of different ways. One of which is to help with our internal systems to just move faster. And I think some of these are going to be table stakes. What's interesting and what we're experimenting with, and on the record, off the record, the largest image generating platforms in the world are constantly requesting time with us. They want to get an understanding. They don't want to necessarily steal GIPHY. I don't think it's an M&A thing, but any type of query-based image output relationship is of massive interest to the largest image generating platforms in the world. And you can go down the list of who you think that is. So there's something about that symbiotic relationship of demand as well as the output being in the form of an image. And the GIFs are obviously animated images. So we are getting a lot of interest there. We are using it internally. But the one big difference that I think is subtle, there's a bit of a tug of war here between the subtle part and how and big. And here's what I mean. What we know through our data and experience is that AI can create GIFs all day, and it will get better and better at doing that. What AI doesn't have is the context. So I'll give you a quick example of its football season, talking about the Super Bowl coming up in a couple of months. What AI would think is that the highlight reel, the touchdown, is what needs to be generated by GIFs, right? And first of all, AI would need to have the rights from the NFL to do it. That's a different discussion where we do in many cases with the biggest leagues in the world. What the difference is and what we know is that the GIF is about the spike that went awry. It's about the person who is pulling the change for the 10 yards who trips over someone's foot. That's the GIF. And AI doesn't know that and won't for a little bit. That human context of what we know in the moment is funny. And that spirit is what makes GIFs go viral. It's not anyone trying. It's just something funny. I'll go back to Jet 2 Holiday. I still have no idea why Jet 2 Holiday exploded. We're not talking about like a little curve here. We're talking about billions of people. You just get it, but you would never be able to manufacture that. Watch, we find out that AI manufactured Jet 2 Holiday. I don't think that's true. If it is, you have to delete it from this conversation. So it's like the context that matters.
Yeah, it's also like the one that was everywhere for me was when that guy got caught with his HR girl, at the concert or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
and
like,
again, AI can create those all day, but if it's not real and it's not in that moment of embarrassment,
it's not funny.
No, it isn't. And we all get it. Like we have this TikTok fact here, which means that I think it's true that out of all of our senses, authenticity is 10 times as powerful as every other one. That we as humans are so capable of detecting if someone's authentic or not. It's probably a fight or flight thing, right? And that is something that AI doesn't have yet. However, it needs to be harnessed for all the obvious reasons, and we're doing that.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about measurement, because GIFs are shared so ubiquitously in all these different private channels. Do you have a way of measuring that? And does it matter? Like if I share it on Telegram, or if I share it in text, or if I share it on a Slack thread, or some instant messaging app, like does it matter the channel in which it's shared? And is that data important to marketers?
I do believe all the data is important. And with our strategic partnerships, as you mentioned in the beginning, that they vary as far as the relationships that we have from them when it comes from content. Any signal matters. And in some areas, we have transparency and we get data back, and in other areas, because of privacy, we are not getting those signals. But when we do have a relationship, whether it's a click, share, demographic data, all anonymized, or an action, we use that to enhance the user experience as well as the gifts that we give to partners who are asking for content. On the other side of the business, we've been making a lot of progress with third-party measurement partners. So not as exciting, but I think it's table stakes in this business. Nielsen to measure brand lift, and across the board, we've seen the majority, if not all, campaigns showing a lift. We've recently adopted a measurement tool called Samba TV.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so Samba does probably, maybe even from your YouTube days, even though that was a bit ago. What
Yep.
Samba does is they can use look back measurement on a campaign that ran, and then mostly the entertainment and shows where we get a lot of business from, and we're able to see if it drove tune-in. And this was also one of those areas that I was a little hesitant because of the nature of the gifts that we'll say the Bachelor or Bachelorette. Like usually these are micro moments of iconic parts of one of those shows, and people send it because they either felt that way or it was a funny moment. I'm like, how's that going to drive tune-in? Even if that's the paid creative that they're using, because we know it works as far as engagement. And what we found, and this is nascent, we only have a couple of samples. What we found is that we drove tune-in. So it's going back to this narrative, and I want to be mindful of like being like salesy. Like I am as impressed by this and skeptical as somebody else might be, because I want to see the data. And when we talk about Mug, or we talk about these 3 different shows that ran campaigns and we drove tune-in to all 3 of them, there is something going on here that I quite honestly don't think we can really manufacture to a precise level to get those tune-in outputs all the time. But we know that when we examine these pieces of creative, they were on brand, and they weren't trying too hard, and they weren't trying to have a bad character. I'm saying bad this way with air quotes, those that can't see, a bad character into a good one, right? They weren't trying to manufacture anything. They were just a direct representation of what the shows really are. They get it. If you understand the cultural elements and you leverage that, it just turns into results. And we just want to do that for clients.
No, that totally makes sense. I could see the power for entertainment marketing, or really any cultural moment, right? Like anything that has live tune in, because like what you were talking about, having these rights partnerships with sports leagues or IP around TV shows or movies, those are kind of what's left of like cultural tune in moments where we like watch things in groups, and then it's those funny, or what's the most hilarious moment that happened within the big game or this show or this reality show or this comedy show. It's that those are the moments that kind of become memes organically.
Yeah.
So if you're looking, and that's the hardest part about I think entertainment marketing these days is there isn't the same discovery mechanisms that we used to have, which is like channel surfing, or having to watch ads on TV would then show you previews for other shows that you might be interested in. So you'd be like, oh, that looks cool, I'll go check that out. Now we're pretty much like, if the algorithm doesn't show it to you or you don't hear it, like my favorite way to discover new shows is from word of mouth. Sure. I love when people tell me about a new podcast I should listen to, a new TV show I should watch, maybe even a TV show that's 10 years old that I should watch, binge watch now. I love that. And memes is essentially that at scale, but with like, like a funny moment or a visual essentially. So
yeah, that's so well said.
Yeah, I can see the power for entertainment marketers as well. How are our creators, how is the creator economy tapping into GIPHY? Are there such things as GIPHY influencers, or do influencers have a hand in kind of driving trends inside of the GIPHY ecosystem? Just kind of curious how you guys think about the creator economy in broader terms.
Yeah, so the creators have a presence across the board, and they enjoy and earn a lot of organic exposure. The one place that we've gone back and forth on a business model is we're not incentivizing them as far as an ability to drive revenue for themselves. So we're immediately deprioritized. And while they embrace the platform, create content, use that content, it doesn't it doesn't always appear as the default of a place that they want to be their home field or their destination or to talk about a product. But they understand the inherent value of having presence on it. It's definitely an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity for influencers, but we need to create the engine that makes it easy for them to add more content, which has been growing. But at the same time, how do we incentivize creators to create content across GIPHY that advances their business objectives? Because you spoke about YouTube before, the fact that YouTube allows a sponsor them to speak about a sponsor within the video and not just rely on the force view ads is such a huge advantage, on top of paying them for volume of views of their content. And we just need to think more about how we can embrace the creative economy that maps to their own business needs. We're not quite there yet, but we think it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for startups or emerging brands, where would you recommend they begin with GIPHY to make an impact without having those, huge budgets and kind of scrapping out incremental experimental dollars? But if I were a new direct-to-consumer CPG brand and I wanted to get into GIPHY and see if I could make it work for my brand, where would you suggest they begin?
Yeah, one of the places that is a powerful starting point is just start doing it. I think it's like anything else. Or we'll refer back what I think on podcast 212, I think you said 207. Like, you just started doing it, right? And you hone the process, and then your views go up. And it's the same thing for a small business. And it doesn't have to be a financial investment in any way. Just start learning how to use the platform, load up content, analyze what works, use the analytics, keep doing it. Like, there are brands that are made on GIPHY that could continue to flourish because they stuck with it. As far as loading up content only when you have something to say, that is too conservative. It should be a constant content evolution that with a disciplined strategy to build an audience. And you can do it really efficiently, especially as you're smaller, and then invest to accelerate when the time is right.
Makes sense. What excites you most about the next era of digital expression?
The first part is sitting in the center of it right now. As far as feed-based environments being dead, I think that's slightly hyperbolic. The internet evolving right now, accelerated by AI, and headsets are not yet the norm. I am excited to see of the power of group messaging and how these communities could be harnessed more. Because I think the internet's going to get more and more private for a multitude of reasons. And when we stop having this, I don't think it's going to end soon, the need for endorphins, right? As we go through feed-based environments, eventually it's going to get a little tiring, I think. Did you use Sora 2 yet?
No, I haven't tried it. I'm kind of an AI Luddite. I'm like ChatGPT for lots of research and like what conferences should I go to this week, and even like what does cocktail party mean and what outfit should I wear to this event tonight. I love it. I love the kind of Steve Jobs, only wearing the turtleneck and jeans because he doesn't have to think. I've outsourced all my boring thoughts to ChatGPT, or all my mundane thoughts to ChatGPT, or mundane questions. But I haven't done enough on the generative stuff.
I am a big fan of every single thing you said. Plus, one thing I started about a year and a half ago, I pick out what I'm going to wear the next day, the night before. It's pretty stressful, believe it or not. But then when you do it and you just wake up and it's already there, it is such a relief. So most of the leaders like you across the industry that I've asked have not started to use Sora 2. And what I'm referring to is the feed-based environment that's just AI generated. So basically they took the TikTok model, it's identical, and they've only made it where your prompts become the video. And what I think is fascinating about this is not just the IP boundaries that they ran into, but that it has not been widely adopted yet. So what's interesting is like ChatGPT, if that's your choice of like how many hundreds of millions of people are using that for all types of tasks and expression and work and all of that. But then you convert that to like a visual interpretation in the same feed environment, and it's a much different appetite, right? So I think AI's usage is going to start to carve out itself. And if it doesn't convert to what people are doing now, and maybe it will in time, or maybe they're just the wrong application, or it's too similar to TikTok, I wonder what that next step is going to be with AI in these environments, right? So I think people are tired. I think our brains are tired. I think we need to be bored more. And I think that the comfort of group messaging in that environment where you're with your friends and you're with your family and you can be yourself is so much different than a public persona in a feed-based environment, that it's going to continue to go in that direction of, you know what, I just want to be here and be comfortable and talk to my friends. And other messaging is going to have, outside of that's going to have a different role. And I think we're going to become a little more human. And I think we are going to, there's this term I heard today that I'm totally going to misplace. It's something about putting your feet on the grass. It's like a
grounding.
Yeah, it's grounding, right? Okay, so it's what you're doing is grounding, but it's called like grass green. It's a term that younger generation is using. So if the younger generation is curious about being more grounded, that groundswell is probably going to happen even more. And I think we're going to go a little bit more analog. I hope we do. I think more creativity comes from that. I hope we do. We'll be gentler on our brains.
I love it. I'm a big fan of digital detox. My phone stays right here in my office when I wrap up the day, and I don't look at it until I get up the next morning.
Wow.
I'm not perfect by any stretch, but I've definitely, I even at one point took Sundays off of even bringing my phone with me in my car. Like I would just leave it in the office. I've given that one up. Unfortunately, it didn't last. But I think the more moments we can carve out for digital detox, just as like a practice, like try it out, and it's actually extremely uncomfortable when it starts. But if you can get through the discomfort, it becomes pleasure on the other end. I will tell you that much.
I agree. I've done this small experiment. I take a train ride home from Westchester, New York to Manhattan. And I pushed myself for 5 minutes not to use a device and just look out the window. In the first 5 minutes, I usually have these thoughts around like, oh, I got to buy a new smoke detector. Like that's important. And I usually text myself these small things, and I resist that. But right after 5 minutes, your brain remembers how to get into that biorhythm. And all of a sudden, let's call it meditative, if you get to that state, you start to get into the flow of not being stimulated. It just takes a lot of discipline. I compliment you to be able to end your day and leave the phone. I just strive to get to that point, but I find pretty good balance in it. You just got to, like everything, like moderation, right?
100%. All right, Kevin. Well, this was a fascinating conversation. I am excited what you guys are doing at GIPHY, and I'll be excited to continue to follow along. So where would you like to send people who want to connect and learn more?
Use GIPHY across all your surfaces and enjoy it. I can be found on LinkedIn at Kevin A. Hein, and we very much want to connect with people who enjoy our product and marketers that want to find out more about it for whatever your brand wants to do organically or paid. And Dylan, thank you for hosting me. I really appreciate it. It's such an interesting conversation because you've led it this way. And I hope you go to the refrigerator and on a Friday, enjoy a sugary Halloween drink of mug root beer and send me a picture, please.
I will do so. I will do so. Well, thank you, Kevin. For everybody who's following along at home, if this is the first time you're seeing the show, don't forget to give us a follow or subscribe to tune in to exciting conversation with marketing leaders like Kevin. If this is the first time that you're listening to the show, or you are listening to the show on a podcasting platform, a review is how the algorithms give us more and more distribution. So don't forget to give us an honest review. And last but not least, if there is a chief marketing officer out there, maybe a social strategist at an agency, or someone who you think would get some value from the conversation that I had with Kevin today about the rise of dark social and how brands can take advantage of cultural moments, and the idea of infiltrating these private messaging communities, and how you could do that authentically, don't forget to share the show. And with that, Kevin, I will go ahead and wish you a good night and happy Halloween.
You too, Dylan. Be safe. Have fun.
Cheers,
Thank you.
bud.
Bye.